Hey, would you like to be higher than you've ever been in your life? Stay tuned.
A better you starts today.
This one really does freak me out. Mostly because I just saw it happen real time in my head. So, look, I didn't see it. Look, I noticed it in my head, alright? Don't grammar police me. I'm running to the own beat of my own drum. Language is subjective. Like the video if you agree. Yeah, well, anyway, look. Here's something that you really should register in your own head. This is really scary. You know how when you go through life and you go to the supermarket, instead of choosing, say, Woolies, you choose Coles. Why do you think that is? I would wager it has something to do with you being a kid and going, King's in Woolworths, and then they said, no, it's too expensive, and then slapped it away. And then because they were in a good move, I think because Liquorland just opened up next to Coles, you said exactly the same thing. Can I have this kid a surprise? And then your mum was like, yeah, all right, whatever. And because you have a slightly better memory of Coles, you are going to be a customer for life. Yeah. Either that or they just advertise a lot. I don't know. Look, all I'm saying is I noticed this and it really, really scared me when I was doing a stand-up show of mine. Tickets available to wherever I'm going next. I think I'm going to, I don't know. Look, the point is I'm probably close. Australia's not that big of a continent, all right? You fly to see me. I was doing a video. No, it wasn't. It was a live stage. I'm lying. I was doing a live stage video. What the fuck? I was doing a live stage show. And while I was doing the live stage show, there were these points, and this is something that's very interesting about being on stage a lot, is that because it's just such a hyper moment of your life, there's just so many people staring at you, you are hyper aware of everything that you're doing. It is very similar, you would know this, mounted stoners, having some little of your mushroom pills. It's like that. You know, you're just like, whoa, I can see my own mind, man. You kind of get a similar rush if you say microdosing. I'm sure a lot of tech billionaires would know this. And would be watching this as well because they take success tips from me. So, yeah, there is this moment where you are hyper aware of what your brain is doing on a good day. What did I notice? This is a very, very minute point that is faint and it kind of disappears even when you're trying to articulate it. This is how insidious this is. But the human brain is always trying to bring you back into the past. It is trying to bring you back to a moment that no longer exists. What am I talking about here? Probably should have explained that, shouldn't I? Deepest apologies. What am I talking about is, sometimes when you're delivering the same line, because it's a stand-up show. Ooh, reveal behind the magic curtain. It's not all improv. It's only 95% improv because that's how good I am. But anyway, you know, you've got your jokes, yeah? And you're delivering them, and you can feel your mind before you deliver them when you aren't in that zone where whatever is happening naturally, you just go with it. When you're not in that zone, your brain says, do it like this time when you were in Gosford, let's say, for example, because I always kill there. No, most of the time it is just a bunch of slack-jawed gawkers looking at me, being like, you know Rodney Rood. And they're right, because Rodney Rood's better than I'll ever be. But that's what's happening, yeah? So you're always just sitting there thinking, deliver it like this the last time. And then, here's the thing. You try and deliver it like you did the last time, and it fails, inevitably. It always gets a flat response. Why is that? Because you aren't in the moment, man. Have you ever heard a self-help channel say that before? Well, you're going to hear it in the future, so stop whining about it. But I think that it is a really scary instance that your brain is always trying to revert back to something that it enjoyed in the past as this sort of safety mechanism. Because, again, let's just go through it. Why is it doing that? It is designed to keep you alive. That's all it wants to do. So when it remembers something that gave you some margin of success or some advantage in the past, it will always go, just keep doing that. Now, a lot of the time, it's probably a good idea that it is doing that, yeah? Instead of doing the Tide Pod challenge and then going to the hospital because you were all aspiring YouTubers like me. Look, we all had exactly the same childhood, right? You all had this one gate from a drill going through your knee from your dad, right? We all remember that. That's relatable. But anyway. Anyway. Groove on that. Think about that in your own time. But that's what's happening. Your brain has always tried to move back to a situation where it felt safe. That is so bad for the utilization of the present moment. In the present moment, you should be present. And when you aren't present, you are always doing a worse job than you would be if you weren't present. Always. I'm not even talking about, say, performance now, although that is absolutely true. If you are present and in the moment, it doesn't matter if you're running a marathon, doesn't matter if you're writing a test, you are going to be doing better if your mind is blank and it's just you and the paper or the track or whatever is there. That's what you want to be getting into. You want to be getting, that is what is known as like a peak performance state or flow. That's where you want to be. That moment where you are absolutely focused on what is happening at that moment. You don't want your brain, especially, this is so bad as well, because it is just doing this fragmentally. It is also just going back to the past anyway, because the brain is always just moving back and forward into, that's where it always is. You know, you move to the past depression, if you move to the forward anxiety, if you're in the present moment, everything's good. Always. Even in a war. In fact, probably, even if your leg gets blown off, you're just like, wow, this is a new experience. You should be absorbing what is happening to you at that moment. Because it's also just about giving you time to unpack what actually you could take from that situation. So why did I even have that realization in the first place? Because after just being on stage for so long, you start getting into these incremental points, right? So like when you first start out, you think, oh, I'm bombing, and then you just bomb for the rest of the time and it's not fun at all. Now that still happens, well, I wish it did, but it also is true that when you start doing this for a while, you start thinking about bombing as, oh, okay, that last joke didn't work, or I was off my game for this 2 or 3 minutes here, and you can see it when you are watching yourself back on camera, that you have reverted back into your head. That's the real challenge now, is just trying to be focused and in the zone for an hour while you're on stage. Or, let's be honest, my show usually drags on to an hour and a half. Sorry about that, guys, but you're getting value for money, right? But that's what you're looking for. You are looking for staying in that moment at all times and not reverting back into your head. When you are reverting back into your head, what's happening most of the time? You did it like this before. Do it like this now. That's what it's always moving back to. It's very scary that it's always just this thing of like your brain is just putting this inserter filter over the top of everything you do and just being like, this is a memory from the past. This is reality now. That's why a lot of people, I think, and let's just talk about in terms of success and failure for a second. That is a guaranteed recipe for failure. A guaranteed recipe for failure is always just this thing of like, this didn't work in the past, so I'm not going to try anything that even resembles that in the future. Nothing even close. When a lot of the time, when it comes to the difference between success and failure, a horsehair. There's a horsehair's difference. A really good example is when you're talking about all these tech billionaires that started the computing revolution in the 70s, you Bill Gates and whoever the rest were, Steve Jobs. All those people, you know, if they were just born a few weeks later, a lot of these people, no chance. I know one of them. My ex-landlord, who I think we all know why he is my ex-landlord, but he was an extremely wealthy computer programmer. I think he must have been worth $100 million, minimum. But he wasn't worth billions. He wasn't worth nearly $1 trillion. And why? Because he was born a few months out. Isn't that, it's just that much. Either way, you know, when I think about being a YouTuber, for instance, there is an entire generation of my people, the millennials, that are around my age, that if they were just a couple of years younger, they'd be YouTube celebrities like myself. Instead, they're just failures that work at a daycare centre now. Not that you're a failure if you work at a daycare centre, but they want to be a comedian, so they are a failure in their own field. Shut up, you get it. Like, right? Look, obviously you're doing something much more noble than I am being a daycare centre worker anyway. I don't want to hear any of this like, but actually, you're probably just a really nice person. You'd be like, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But that's what we're looking at today. Every time you are looking into a memory inside your head, you are not absorbed in the moment. In fact, you are rejecting what the current moment has for you to offer. What is the key to education? It is being present. You know when I'm always saying read for an hour a day? The challenge is to stay present while you are reading that book. A lot of the time you're not, are you? This is why a lot of people always say, and I think this actually is really good advice, when I'm always just saying fiction sucks. First off, I'm not even qualified to say that because I don't even read it, but I just think that a lot of people read fiction instead of non-fiction. You should be reading that. But I will say this, at the very least, if you are doing that, it is keeping up the habit of you doing it. Actually, I do have some evidence for fiction sucking. A lot of people that were, conspiracy theorists are fiction readers. Correlation. Is it causation? You better believe it is. So anyway, we'll talk about that another time, okay? We're just talking about in the moment, when you are present, that is when you are going to be absorbing what the moment has to offer for you. And on top of that, you are not ever going to be performing unless, well, at the very least, if you aren't involved in the present moment. Instead, the human mind always wants to revert back to something that you did well in the past and wants you to replicate it. That is a trick. That is a trick of the mind. And you think about all of those moments accumulating throughout your life, that's a lot of moments that are robbed from you, living in nostalgia, which in itself is a trap, isn't it? If you're a millennial, how much does that appeal to you? Oh, a Squirtle sticker. Yeah, I'll pay $10 for that. All that kind of crap. Let's be honest, it is crap. Like a lot of that stuff that like we're now paying hundreds of dollars for a toy to just cover the bail and be like, yes, it reminds me of my childhood. Yeah, well, it's not here now, is it? Now you live in the present moment. I think a lot of the reason that people stay reverted in a childhood stasis, way too late, by the way. Like I have seen some people from my generation that when I look at the things that they're talking about now, and dude, I am not exempt of this at all. I am a preacher, not a practicer. Yeah, but there are a bunch of things where you just look at it and then you think like, this is a developmental roadblock that has happened here. You're not moving forward. You're just kind of just staying in this like, it was nice and safe and happy here. And the reality of this situation is, no, it wasn't. It's just everything always looks better when it comes to the rose-tinted glasses of the past. But one thing that is guaranteed is that if you are living in the past while you are trying to perform, and I'm not talking about perform on stage, I'm just talking about high-speed performance. So the other type, race car driver. Yes, that's much less niche. But that kind of performance, you are never going to do it well, and you will never have those little insights like I had there, where your brain is trying to do one of those house of mirror tricks. One of the great things about self-help is that it is always trying to expose what those little house of mirrors things are doing to your brain, what it's trying to divert your attention into, how it's trying to sap you out of getting the most out of the moment. That is a huge one, reverting back into memory. It reverts back into memory when it's scared. So, how do we stop that? Lots of tools here about how to be present. Even more tools behind my paywall at Jordan Shanks, where you can get up to 2 videos, soon to be 3. Wade Dye tier for 2, Jim Bro tier for 1. Make sure that you sign up, because if you don't, well, you're not getting any new information, and now you're just living off what is a memory now, aren't you? So it's up to you.